Next, we have Basic Calc Functionality for Engineering or Electronics by Christopher Howard. He will answer questions via IRC in the EmacsConf Jan channel.
Hello, my name is Christopher Howard, and welcome to my talk. This is basically an introduction to the built-in Emacs calculator, properly known as Emacs Calc, particularly from the perspective of someone with a technical background such as engineering or electronics. I will say, though, my personal interest is not really in digital computing or digital calculators, but lately has been focused more on analog computing. I have, for example, been working to master the venerable slide rule, a mechanical computer that calculates multiplication, powers, and logarithms. Here's a picture of one. It's a physical tool that was used for hundreds of years for this sort of thing before the handheld calculator was made popular. And I also had a project that I did for a while several months to build an electronic analog computer. So a rudimentary attempt of mine, but it's functional, and it's basically 1960s or 1970s style electronic analog computer, built very much on a budget, but the box in the middle is the computer proper, which has most of the components inside of it, as well as the potentiometers for setting values, and an operation switch. There's a patch panel on the left for connecting the different integrators, amplifiers, multipliers, and so forth together. And then the output of the simulation is displayed on the oscilloscope on the right side, which is a digital oscilloscope. And to be honest, I think that a talk about analog computing would be much more interesting than the talk that I'm about to give, but unfortunately that would be out of scope for Emacs conference. So instead I will talk about Emacs Calc, the digital calculator built into Emacs. Emacs Calc, while not being a replacement for software like GNU Octave, does have advanced calculator functionality that can be useful in engineering, electronics, or other technical applications. So I don't want to oversell it, but I think functionality-wise, Calc is somewhere in between what you'd expect of a decent scientific calculator and an advanced graphics calculator. So this talk, I'll mention, is not intended to be a tutorial, but only a brief introduction to Calc. So please refer to the built-in Calc info manual for detailed instructions on how to complete operations. Turn off my volume here. So the documentation for Emacs Calc is built in, although on some distributions you may have to install the Emacs documentation separately for licensing reasons. Calc presents itself as a stack-based calculator, where entries are dropped onto a stack, and then an operation is performed on the stack entries. So, for example, I can drop 1.23 onto the stack, and then 8.56, and then multiply them together. However, so calc does present itself as a stack-based calculator, but indeed calc is also capable of accepting input in the more well-known algebraic format by using the calc algebraic entry command, which by default is bound to the apostrophe key. So you type the apostrophe key, enter the algebraic input, including parentheses as needed. So, for example, here's a calculation of the resonance frequency of a coil, which has an inductance of 250 microhenries and 160 picofarads, taken from one of my electronics handbooks. So the formula for that is 1 over 2 pi, and then the square root of our inductance, which is, in this case, is 250 microfarads, microhenries, and then 106, then the capacitance, which is 160 picofarads. Small typo here. Now I need to evaluate that one more time because pi is a symbol. And I get about 800 kilohertz resonant frequency. The command calc roll down, which by default is bound to the tab key, will swap the top two stack entries, which is sometimes useful if you need to manipulate something that's further down the stack. So I can swap this around and say multiply it by 2, and then put it back where it was. This command is also capable of rolling the entire stack. So say I want to shift them all around. This can be done by passing extra arguments to the calc roll down function. That's a little bit inconvenient to do manually. So in my init file, I defined here a function that, or a key definition that passes in those arguments correctly. And I attach this to Shift Tab. So this way I can roll the entire stack. Then I could change one entry here and then put it back where it was. So calc does algebraic input. It also does advanced functions that you would expect any handheld scientific calculator, including trigonometric functions. So, for example, we can get the sine of a number. Now, I'll mention here that calc has multiple modes. Right now it's in degree modes. You can switch over to radian modes if you want. I'm going to put it back in degrees. Drop 12 degrees on the stack, and then get the sine of that. And then with the inverse sine function, I can put it back. Calc also has the nifty ability to solve equations for you, so long as the equation's not too complicated. But this is using the calc solve for function. So, for example, we could enter in an equation algebraically. Then run calc solve for, and we just have to tell it what variable we want to solve for. And there we go. We can do this manually as well, just so you can see that we'd get the same result. Calc is also able to solve systems of equations. So we can put more than one equation on the stack and then solve for several variables. To give a technical example for this, I'll show you a resistor network scribble that I did recently. Hopefully you can see that, but basically it's a pretty simple resistor network with 1 kilo ohm and 10 kilo ohm resistors, and using the loop methods, we are calculating the current in each loop, and then that current can be used to solve for the voltage of each individual resistor if we want to. So at the bottom there we have the equations that we come up with as we work through each loop, and I'm going to paste that into Calc to save some time. I'm going to copy and paste that from my notes instead of typing it out. So we have two equations there on the stack in one stack entry, and we run that solve for function again, and we tell it which variables we want to solve for, and voila, those are our currents, which we can then use to get the voltages for the individual resistors. And I'll just briefly mention that if Calc is not able to solve an equation with Calc solve for, then you might be helped by another Calc function called Calc find root. This function basically does a manual search for a numerical solution to the equation. And there's the documentation page on that. Calc can also solve or find derivatives of functions, at least the more straightforward functions. So for a simple example, we can get the derivative of that with the derivative function. And on the other hand, Calc is also able of figuring out indefinite integrals. So say we put that function back on the stack, and this time we call the integral function. And there you go. Of course, you have to add your own constant of integration. For integrals that Calc cannot figure out symbolically, a numerical integration method is available through the calc num integral command. Which is documented, the function documentation is available here, more or less. And I definitely need to mention that Calc is capable of doing programmable functions. That is to say, you can program your own functions into Calc. There are three separate ways to do this. One is through a macro method, similar to Emacs' usual keyboard macros. The second method is to transform an algebraic function into a stored function definition. And the third is to use eLisp directly. Personally, I find that the second method is the most practical, the most convenient and practical, in my opinion. And so I'll give a quick example of that. So I could, let's say I wanted to have a function for calculating capacitive reactance. So I'll define that in algebraic mode first. So the function for that is 1 over 2 pi, the frequency and the capacitance. Drop that on the stack. You see it does automatically get simplified a little bit, but it's the same function. And then I press the letters Z and F. Excuse me, do that again. Z and F to start transforming that into a stored function. It asks me to select a user key, a single key press that I can use for that. I'll use the letter C. Then it's going to ask for a longer command name. I've actually defined this once before, so it pre-filled in that that command name. And then I need to enter which variables in the formula are actual arguments, rather than just symbols to be evaluated later. I prefer to put this in with frequency and the capacitance after that, but actually in this particular case, it doesn't matter at all to the mathematics. So I can now, all I have to do that this is defined is I can drop the frequency on the stack, which we'll say for this example will be 4.5 megahertz, and then drop on the capacitance, which in this example will be 22 picofarads. Then I'll call the function that I just defined. I don't really like having to try to remember the short letters that I've come up with, so I'll just use the longer name. And I need to evaluate one more time because the symbol pi is in there and not yet evaluated. And so if I've done that right, we have a capacitive reactance of about 1600 ohms. And as the last feature that I'll mention here, Emacs Calc does have an interface with GNU plot if you want to have Calc work as your graphing calculator. I do need to be honest and mention that I don't generally use it myself because there's another program in GNOME that I've found to be generally more convenient for the things that I want to graph quickly. But I think I can give you a simple example. So first we need to drop a range on the stack. Let's say 0 to 10. And then we need to drop the function on the stack. And then I believe it's the letters G and F that graph this. Let's see. Yep, there we go. So there's our function, and it looks nice. That was pretty easy. That's the fast way to do it. I will, as a disclaimer, mention that using this quick approach, that sometimes more complicated graphs will not turn out nicely because by default the resolution will be pretty low. That is to say, GNU plot is going to be skipping a lot of points, and so you'll have to learn a bit more about how to use the interface, what parameters to pass, if you want all your graphs to come out looking nice. So that covers all the features that I wanted to cover. I wanted to briefly mention a wish list of items that I'd like to see in Calc. One of them would be improper integrals. So that's like our definite integrals, except for where a limit of integration is infinity. It's something that can be useful in a few applications. Something else that would be neat to have would be annotations for row entries. So, for example, if I was putting together a sum of numbers for, say, my monthly budget, let's say I was paying $2,000 for my rent, and let's say $800 a month for my groceries. A lot of kids to feed there, and then say another, let's say $60 for dining out, and so on. It would be nice if there was some way to put a little annotation next to each number, so that you could remember what the meaning of that number was more easily. I actually looked into programming this into Calc myself, but discovered that that it would require reprogramming quite a bit of Calc to make that work well across all Calc functionality, and so eventually I gave up. But I'd still really like to have that feature. The final thing, though, I think this would not necessarily belong in Calc. I think it would be cool if Emacs had some way to run numerical solutions for systems of differential equations, also known as a differential analyzer. So this would allow you to be able to set up simulation models involving systems of differential equations, for example, a spring mass system or pressure temperature or what have you, and then run the simulation using numerical approximation. And maybe it would be silly to actually put that in Calc itself, but a nice interface maybe to some other software, simple software that did that, an easy to use interface for that would be really great. So that's my entire talk. I'll just mention some information if you want to learn more about me or things that I'm interested in. I do not any longer have a web presence. I don't have a website anymore, but I do have a Gemini capsule that I post to all the time. And if you're willing to install the Gemini browser known as Elfer into Emacs, which is available from ELPA, then you can browse directly to it and look around my Gemini capsule. So, thank you very much.
Next, we have PLE LCNT, an Emacs-centered content production and self-publication framework by Mohsen Banan. He will answer questions via web conference. You can join using the URL from the talk page or ask questions through Etherpad or IRC.
Greetings, Salam. This is Mohsen Banan. I'm a software and internet engineer. The title of this presentation is PLE LCNT, an Emacs-centered content production and self-publication framework. PLE stands for by Star Liber Halal Emacs Environment. In last year's EmacsConf, I introduced PLE, by SOS and by Star, as concepts and as foundations. This year, I want to focus on one concrete capability. Content production and self-publication is a foundational PLE and BISOS capability bundle. Both this presentation and the Nature of Polyexistentials book were developed with PLE LCNT. In this presentation, I want to look at Emacs as a central ingredient for a usage environment that we can use to orchestrate production of quite fancy multimedia presentations. Let's consider two different scopes. First, the scope of PLE LCNT capabilities bundle, which is that of a complete multimedia content authorship, generation, publication, and distribution framework. That complete scope is presented in this slide, and it spans both black ink and violet ink. Second, the scope of this presentation, which is more limited. In this presentation, I confine myself to the bullets in violet ink. Here, I focus on presentation and video as content types, and their authorship generation and their federated republication. This is a common topic. It makes good sense for us to start with a review of prior art and similar art. I went through the past EmacsConf talks and found a good number of them that also deal with the topic of content generation. A few of these are included in black ink in this slide. Many of these have chosen the Babel, in other words, org mode plus LaTeX, as primary input. I prefer the inverse of that. I also looked for past talks which have used Reveal.js and LaTeX Beamer. For example, Sasha's use of Reveal.js is shown in violet ink, and Ihor's use of Beamer is in teal ink. This presentation is about a combination of Reveal.js and LaTeX Beamer. For those who may not be familiar with Beamer and Reveal, here is a quick intro. Among academics, LaTeX Beamer is the go-to tool for producing presentations. Reveal.js is recognized as the best of breed for dispensing HTML slide text. For many, Reveal and Beamer live in different universes. Beamer is PDF-oriented and Reveal is HTML-oriented. Combining two powerful tools makes for an even more powerful tool. This BLCNT presentation combines the best of LaTeX Beamer with Reveal.js. Beamer primarily functions as producer, and Reveal functions as dispenser and multimedia enhancer. Here is how the combination works. LaTeX Beamer PDF result is dissected into named frame images, which can then be inserted in Reveal.js. LaTeX Beamer frames can also be translated into HTML with Hevia, which can also be inserted in Reveal.js. Voiceovers for Beamer frames can be correlated to frame names and applied to image or HTML frames. Screen captures and image narrations as videos can be directly dispensed through Reveal. There are various additional novel concepts with regard to the way that we have integrated all of this together. Instead of org mode plus LaTeX, we do LaTeX plus org mode. Instead of Babel, we do Comiga. Instead of literate model, we introduce the surrounded model. We shall see various examples of these shortly. All of this is part of a bigger picture, a much bigger picture. My talks at EmacsConf 2021, 22, and 24 are related. This 2025 talk builds on those. Last year's talk about BLE, enveloping our own autonomy-directed digital ecosystem with Emacs, in particular, lays the foundation for this talk. If you have not seen that, it would make good sense to review it. In my previous talks, I have been criticized of having a prophetic style. The scope of my story is lofty and immense. In many ways, it's unbelievable. And EmacsConf talks are meant to be short. So, as a result, sometimes I end up being cryptic. Having accepted the prophetic criticism as legitimate, I now need to put a book on the table. With that book in place, moving forward, when needing to be cryptic, I shall cite chapter and verse. I am delighted to announce the availability of my recent book, Nature of Polyexistentials. The full title of my book is Nature of Polyexistentials, Basis for Abolishment of the Western Intellectual Property Rights Regime and Introduction of the Liber Halal by Star Digital Ecosystem. Knowledge, know-how, uses of know-how, ideas, formulas, software, and information are inherently non-scarce. They are polyexistentials. Unlike monoexistentials which exist in singular, polyexistentials naturally exist in multiples. What is abundant in nature is being made artificially scarce through man-made ownership rules called copyright and patents. These mistaken ownership rules, the so-called Western IPR regime, has immense ramifications on the scope and direction of the American digital ecosystem. It would be an understatement to say that the American digital ecosystem has put humanity in danger. Two parts of the book in particular are of immediate relevance. Part 3, the ethics layer, focuses on contours of cures. Having dismissed the Western intellectual property rights regime as an erroneous governance model for polyexistentials, I propose the Liber Halal model of governance of polyexistentials towards facilitating conviviality of tools. Part 4, the engineering layer, introduces the Liber Halal by Star digital ecosystem as an ethical alternative to the prevailing proprietary American digital ecosystem. The book also provides additional details about the content generation and publication facilities that I am presenting here. And the book itself, as content, was generated and published using the facilities that I am presenting here. You can think of this book as being in 2 volumes. Our focus are Blee and Bysauce in Volume 2. Volume 1 deals with the general concept of polyexistence and invalidity of IPR and our terminology of Liber Halal, instead of the common but ill-directed vocabulary of free software and open source and FOSS. In Chapter 11, I introduced the very sensitive and potent vocabulary of halal and Liber Halal. Content of this book belongs to all of humanity, and verbatim copying of it is unrestricted. If you want to read it, this book is yours. The Nature of Polyexistentials book is available both online and in print. This book is available as 2 editions, the US edition and the international edition. The US edition is written with a slightly milder Western unfriendly tone, while the international edition includes additional original content in Farsi. I consider the international edition to be the authoritative version. However, many readers in the US and Western countries may prefer the US edition. I maintain separate Git repositories for each edition on GitHub. US edition is BXPLPC 120.033 and international edition is BXPLPC 120.074. Cloning these repositories will give you access to the book in PDF format, suitable for both A4 and US leather printing, and in EPUB format. Alternatively, the content can be downloaded directly from your browser without needing to clone the repositories. To ensure broader online availability and stability, I have also published the book on Zenodo, complete with DOI digital object identifier. You can download both the A4 and 8.5 by 11 PDFs from there as well. The book is also available in print on Amazon and most major bookstores in the US and Western regions. The ISBNs for both editions are included in this slide. Additionally, I have published this book in Iran through Jangal Publishers. I did not write this book for profit. My aim is to share my thoughts and encourage readers to engage with my views and ideas. Your feedback is welcome, and I am genuinely interested in hearing your perspectives. In Western markets, I have priced the print edition somewhat above production costs. If you find value in the book and the ByStar project, purchasing a copy will help support my work. Thanks in advance for your support. And here are the same links as a native reveal slide. If instead of a video you are viewing this presentation as a reveal web page, you can just click on the pointers and URLs. Instead of the traditional model of giving you recipes in a DIY context towards the goal of creating content processing capabilities on top of what you may already have, I'm doing the opposite. I'm saying, take this whole by source and bleed thing, and in there you will also have the content processing capabilities that I'm speaking of here. So at the top level, we have our own autonomy and privacy-directed digital ecosystem, which in contrast to the center-oriented American digital ecosystem is edge-oriented. We call it the Liber Halal ByStar digital ecosystem. All the systems in ByStar run BySOS, ByStar Internet Services OS, which is a layer on top of Debian. The usage environment of ByStar and BySOS is BLE, which is a layer on top of Emacs. With those in place, we then create a capability bundle called BLE LCNT. So when you buy into BLE and BySOS, you will naturally also get these content processing capabilities without a need for any recipes or DIY effort. If you were to look at the model that I introduced as containment hierarchies, it would look like this. We love Emacs and we love Unix because their design is convivial. By convivial, I'm referring to Ivan Illich's concept and terminology of tools for conviviality. It was first published in 1973. It's a must-read. A goal of the design of the ByStar digital ecosystem is to enlarge the aggregated conviviality of its capabilities. What distinguishes BLE LCNT from other content processing tools and frameworks is our emphasis on enhancing the aggregated conviviality. These tools let you express yourself. They let you be in charge. Here is our parts list. These are the components that we have chosen to bring together towards our goal of creating convivial tools. In this slide, we're using black ink to denote existing tools, and we use violet ink to denote pieces that we have developed towards cohesive integration. The video is just one of the outputs. There are other outputs as well. In this figure, the outputs are shown in the top layer. Using this video as an example, this presentation output also includes the presentation form and the article presentation form. Let's look at these more closely. For presentations, there are three different forms: the video form, the presentation form, and the article presentation form. The presentation form produces both a PDF output and reveal output. Next, we will walk through some of the benefits that availability of these forms and formats provide. The video presentation that you're watching is just one of the outputs of the BLE LCNT machinery. There are two PDF format outputs and two HTML outputs that are also quite useful. The primary output of Beamer is a set of slides that people use to give their talks with. Typically that's done live. In my case, I dissect the images of each frame and do a voiceover on it and then dispense it through Beamer. Dispense it through Reveal. In a second, you will see that as well. This PDF output is very useful. You get the table of contents, of course, and in addition to that, Beamer generates navigations for you where on any part you get a small table of content as well. This is heavily used amongst academics, and it's a good output on its own, and I'm augmenting it in a variety of ways. In addition to the presentation PDF format, there is also an article presentation PDF format, which gives you the same content, but it gives it to you in a textual form with the table of content and the rest. This is a good form to use when you are giving, for example, class lectures, and the students often prefer this format. Now, for the HTML formats outputs, the most relevant, of course, is the reveal itself. If you have not used reveal before, it's in my view, it's a HTML slide dispenser. I don't look at it as a presentation framework. I use, as you are seeing, we use Beamer to feed into it, and we use it to dispense the information. It has all the typical navigation capabilities that you would expect, and most of what I have as slides are images, but occasionally, particularly when there is a need to provide pointers, HTML pointers, I then also include a textual output. This is also produced from the Beamer LaTeX source, but it's HTML through textual HTML through Hevia, not the image. You get a table of contents, you can navigate, and there are a whole lot of other features that Reveal also provides. To generate the video, what I do is I come to the very beginning of the presentation. I turn on the recorder, the screen capture recorder, and then I start playing the voiceover for each slide. And at the very end, you get a video, but what you just did is you dispensed every frame one at a time through Reveal. In addition to this HTML form, you also get a article presentation form of it with a full table of content, and the videos are there and the notes are there, and this is also quite useful. Now let's look at the one single file that produced all of the outputs that we just saw. I have put both the input file and some of the output files for this presentation on GitHub. Here are some links to these repos and files. And here are the same links as a native Reveal slide. This figure gives us an overview of how one set of inputs encapsulated in a single file can produce all of the outputs that we saw. The main text file shown at the bottom is processed by both XeLaTeX and Hevia. The main text file, in addition to LaTeX syntax, also include org mode constructs that facilitate addition of audio and video files. Later, I'll walk through the body press art enfa.tex file that generated this very presentation with you. When you construct that primary text file, there are several abstractions that you need to keep in mind. Is my presentation going to go from left to right or from right to left? Perso-Arabic presentations go from right to left. Another consideration is the type of forms of results that you want. Just the presentation or article presentation as well. With those choices in place, you can produce condition-based text for each of your desired outputs. Think of this video presentation as a sequence of frames. Each frame is controlled by an org mode dynamic block. This table lists available D blocks from which you can choose. For example, this particular frame that we are watching is controlled by BLCNT Pres frame derived image. Beamer creates a PDF file that includes the image of this slide. That image is then injected into Reveal, and in the end, a video of that image is produced with the narration that I am uttering right now. All of this has similarly been applied to each and every frame that you have been watching. Similar to frame controls, there are org mode dynamic blocks for frame body types. You can easily insert an image which is typically created by OpenOffice Draw into a frame. Same with, say, a screen capture video. Now that we have looked at the outputs and the inputs, let's look at how the outputs are generated from the inputs. Let's bootstrap raw BySauce and raw BLE. Starting from scratch, get yourself a fresh copy of Debian 12. Then go to github.com bxgenesis start. The readme.org file at that GitHub repo is same as chapter 18 of the book. We will next run raw BySauce.shell. But prior to that, let's take a quick look. This bootstrap script will do a lot as root on your fresh Debian. It's best to first try it on a disposable VM. Raw BySauce.sh adds the current Debian user to sudoers. Then it installs pipex, and then with pipex it installs from pypi BySauce.provision. BySauce.provision includes additional bash scripts that are then executed. Full installation involves setting up various accounts, group various directory hierarchies, lots of apt packages, and lots of Python packages from the BySauce namespace. If you're ready, copy and paste this line and run it. You will be prompted for the root password. Then be patient. Full installation can take 15 minutes or so. The logs of this script are captured in raw BySauce date-tagged log.org. Now that we have raw BySauce and raw BLE installed, we are ready to walk through the unified source of the very presentation that you're watching. The body press art enfa.tex file that we will visit is in Comiga LaTeX syntax, with lots of org mode D blocks which generate Beamer LaTeX frames and conditioned LaTeX bodies. After the walkthrough, I'll describe D blocks and Comiga in more detail. At the tail end of the walkthrough, we will also go through the generation process, which runs XeLaTeX and Hevia and a lot more. Let's look at our input file. It's a LaTeX file in LaTeX mode, and it has org syntax, org mode included in it. And I can toggle between LaTeX and org mode So now I'm going to be in org mode, and org mode gives me everything that org has to offer, including a very convenient navigation framework. So let's take one slide and take a look at how it was done. So I would come to this scope slide, and while I am there, I'm gonna click on N. N takes me to the native LaTeX form back, so that I'll be looking at it not in org but in LaTeX. So we're back in LaTeX, and as you can see, it uses a dynamic block starting with the comments and the begin, and it uses a dynamic block named a frame drive image, which means the content of this frame will be dispensed as an image, not as text. And it also automatically creates for me a name, a label that can be used for voiceover augmentation. So a file in the audio directory called scope of blcmt.mp3 is this audio that will come on top of this slide. And then the rest is the LaTeX itself. The concept of org dynamic blocks is very powerful. I think of them as universal visible macros. But why should they be primarily used in just org mode? I say let's generalize them to Emacs dynamic blocks. Have defaults for org dblock start RE in every relevant mode and use them everywhere. Blee does that. In Comiga LaTeX, dynamic blocks create frame controls and insert image and video contents. Much of Blee and BySauce are implemented in Comiga. Almost all of our eLisp, Python, Bash, and LaTeX work uses Comiga. Comiga stands for Collaborative Org Mode Enhanced Emacs Generalized Authorship. It is the inverse of org babel. Comiga adds org mode to your programming mode. Full and proper use of Comiga requires poly mode. Let's call that polycomiga. But Emacs's poly mode is work in progress, particularly now with the new 3-seater. So in the interim, my usage of Comiga has been in the form of toggle Comiga, where I manually switch between the programming mode and org mode. For me, this has proved to be a fine interim solution. Naturally, content processing should be multilingual and internationalized. Let's look at that dimension. I am Iranian, and much of what I write is in Farsi. Getting Perso-Arabic text right is often a challenge, as it involves bidirectional text, BD, and shaping of characters. In the context of our content generation, these need to span all relevant tools, not just Emacs. For Emacs, I have created my own input method called Farsi Transliterate Banan. My EmacsConf 2021 talk was about that. Now let's look at some examples and spice it up a bit with semantics. As an example of proper BD text, here is the original Farsi text along with English translation of Imam Khomeini's text with respect to invalidity of Western intellectual property rights regime. And as another example of proper BD text, here is Ayatollah Motahari's take on Western IPR not being private property. Note that these predate by more than half a century Jack Dorsey and Elon Musk's tweets on April 11, 2025 saying, "Delete all IP law." This topic is too important and too sensitive to be left to American billionaires and their tweets. Let me again refer you to the logic of polyexistentials in my book. Chapter 14 of the book is dedicated to ethics and ownership in religion. With respect to my preference for ethics over freedom, let me refer you to section 12.4, a cynical perspective on freedom orientation of Americans, in which I described where the false labels and the likes of Stallman, Raymond, Moglen, and Lessig have gone wrong. If you're one of their followers, perhaps chapter 12 is for you. My emphasis thus far has been on content generation. Let's very briefly also look at autonomous self-publication and federated republications of our content. From the very beginning, the Debian folks understood the importance of universality and coined the Universal Debian label. This means that we can base our entire digital ecosystem on just the Liber Halal Debian distro. And that is what we have done with ByStar. In ByStar, everything is based on just the Universal Debian everywhere. This has made our usage environment totally harmonious with our service environment, allowing for very powerful software service continuums. Of course, all of this is immediately applicable to our ByStar content bundle as well. Some have asked, why don't you also include Ubuntu? I think the opposite makes more sense. Ubuntu should converge with Debian. I tried to explain this to Mark Shuttleworth in an email a while back. I've included that email in section 12.1.5. In this presentation, we have stopped at the raw by source stage. We can further evolve raw by source and make it be cited and provide autonomous publication services. But here, by going through EmacsConf and YouTube, we are using the federated republication model. Something this large should be well documented. In Emacs, the way that we have been dealing with documentation and information retrieval is archaic. Man pages, TechInfo, helpful mode, and convention-based doc strings are old and limited. In BySauce and Blee, we use Blee panels for all kinds of documentation. Let me show you some examples. So, what next? If Blee, BySauce, ByStar, Liber Halal, polyexistentials, and these content processing capabilities have piqued your interest, please feel welcome to contact me. These Emacs conferences have proven to be very useful and productive. I look forward to your thoughts, feedback, and questions. I want to thank all the EmacsConf 2025 organizers for their great work, and Sasha in particular.
And then people can join here as well.
Right.
Let me just set up the windows appropriately. Here we go. All right. Thank you very much for your talk. I think we're now in a live Q&A session for Blee, LCNT, and people can join us here in the Big Blue Button room, and you can go ahead and take it away.
Greetings, Salam again. Delighted to be here and happy to answer your questions. I'm not seeing anything yet, but let me take advantage of this time to speak about one question that I saw come in earlier on the pad, which was all the outputs and the inputs that you mentioned, where are they? So they are on GitHub, and this is in one of my slides. I mentioned the URL for it. I'll show you that as well. The URL for it is GitHub bxplpc 18068, which is the handle for this talk. In there, you have all the PDFs and the HTMLs, a citation, a bib input, and also the sources. So if you were to go to the PDF, you will see both the article presentation and the beamer. Let's take a quick look at the beamer, which is what you have seen. As far as the sources are, there are two primary files. This presentation, left to right, is the one that includes all the LaTeX packages. We might as well take a quick look. So what's in there is primarily the use packages, and then it dispatches to BodyPres art, and this is where the code is. And I walked through this briefly. So notice here again that this is a mixture of LaTeX and org, and each of the presentation slides are here. For example, my introduction is just a video that gets included, and then the notes that I use, the voiceover, is also included in the LaTeX file. Let me
It'll probably be easy to take those voiceover notes and then align them with a tool like Aeneas to make subtitles for your videos.
Exactly, and that is what I do. So there is a way to gather them all as P-notes, and so all the P-note get together in a single file, and then you feed that to Aeneas, and it will align them. And then there is the work of using your subed to just get the right sort of line length on them. But you did all of that for me this year, Sasha. Thank you very much. It was just a matter of not having time. Otherwise, I plan to do it myself.
Oh no, it's all right. It was very easy since you provided the full narration. I find that Aeneas I still need to tweak it sometimes, so I often use the waveforms in Subed to find the right starting time and ending time for things. But it is so nice to have a presentation where you can experience it in different forms, as an article, as a video, as as a post with links and everything. Very handy.
Right, and in case a teacher uses this for class lectures, then the student profits from all sorts. The article presentation format is very useful for a student to add their own notes to it and the rest. Exactly as you said, having multiple forms is great. Video has its place, Reveal has its place, PDF has its place, article has its place. All of them work together.
I've been having a hard time figuring out how to make the Reveal.js version of a presentation more easily distributable. Though this is something we've had a hard time with in the past too. You have these lovely EmacsConf presentations that could be Reveal presentations, but hosting them doesn't quite fit in the usual assumptions people have.
Exactly. So if we were to have a Reveal server, then we could upload our Reveal inputs to it. But you're right. We should look for some sort of a packaging that is more plug and distribute. So I'll be all game if we wanted to do it for next year. I'll be happy to provide all the Reveal outputs. In fact, they are here. Let me touch on that quickly. Good point you brought up. So this is the Reveal output. So all of these, you see the images and the audio in my own environment are symlinks to where I keep them. So those need to come in, but the Reveal output really comes right here. And this is how
Maybe
it looks.
if that's a link you can add to the pad, then I can add it to the top page afterwards. I think as a speaker, I tend to just self-host the thing, and that way also if I find a bug, which often happens, I can go and quietly update it.
Exactly. Sure. Yeah, this right now what we are looking at is from GitHub. And the audio and the images, of course, are large, and I did not upload them, but I can send them, sure. So a few other things maybe I can elaborate on. This is the bootstrapping page for BySauce, also on there. And if somebody wanted to actually dig deeper and go through this, a good starting point would be my GitHub page. But my GitHub page is not done and organized the usual way. So I only have 3 repositories, and the repositories basically say, here is where you need to go. So all of my work is organized as organizations. So for example, for Emacs, if you were to go to bxbli, you will see all the relevant repos for that purpose. So for example, if you wanted to come and take a look at mail templating, distribution, and tracking, you would get a Emacs package ready to go over here. But again, all of this is through the use of GitHub organizations. So my repos are by subject, and the BySauce itself has 69 repositories where different sections of it are packaged as pip packages. So for example, for LCNT, we can go there. So these are the packages that let you, let me go there, that let you dissect.
You have your slides. Sorry, you have your slides shared at the moment, so I don't know if you're in a different tab.
Oh. Yeah. Am I in a different tab? I thought that would follow me. Yes, I am in a different tab. Let me see. This is the one that you are seeing. So let me go over here.
Perfect.
Now you're seeing it. So
literally on the same page. Awesome.
Right. So you were not actually seeing what I was saying. So what I was saying is that if you go to my primary website GitHub page, you will see that there are only 3 repos there. And those repos just give information about where the real repos are. And the real repos are organized in various organizations. So for example, for Emacs packages, I use the bxbli, and in there are 40 repositories. And as an example, you can choose, for example, AI Plus is just a few additional libraries for menus for Emacs. And the rest of BLI is done that way as well. So if you were to, let me also show more relevant stuff to the content generation. Everything related to BySauce in Python is in BySauce pip. These are packages that are ready to be exported to PyPI. And for example, for LCNT, if you go here, let's go to the bin directory. These are the utilities that dissect the PDF output of Beamer, convert it to images so that you can insert them in Reveal. And then again, if you were to just wanted to dig deeper in any of these as components, you would simply start from this top level page and explore the organizations. So in total, maybe there is 300 repos, but they are organized by subject matter within GitHub organizations. Yeah. One additional general comment. If you were to look at my presentation, I'd say I touched on 5 different topics. So one topic was this content generation in general. The second one was this challenge of DIY model and recipes versus building something large and including everything in it. And that has been the motivation for BySauce and BLI. And I'm interested in getting feedback on it. In general, the open source culture has been focusing on components, and large American corporations have focused in integration of these components. So my short message here is that we should start thinking as providing solutions as opposed to minor pieces and packages, and put them all together and claim them as our own digital ecosystem. And this is the concept behind ByStar, BySauce, and BLI. The third point I was making throughout is this concept of dynamic blocks everywhere, and Comiga, which is the inverse of Babel. And I'll also be interested in feedback on those. I think the D blocks everywhere concept, I can very quickly show that it would be in the LaTeX file as an example. I didn't really do a good job in digging deeper into that. So if you go to the sources and you look at any of the slides, all the slides are in here inside of a dynamic block. This is an org D block, but you would invoke it in LaTeX mode. And then from this begin to this end, everything is auto-generated through the eLisp function body video. And the parameters that it takes are the video path. So all of this code is repeated all over the place, and all you need in it is the video path. So it's very easy to think of this as a macro capability, except that the macro is visible. And it has one additional benefit on top of general macro capabilities, and that is that it's open. In this particular case, it closes, but let me show you another one where it is open. So if you look at, this is LaTeX section, this one is good. This is a derived image. And by saying that it's open is that you see my begin verbatim and my begin frame, they end and there is no closing for them. So the extra text that is outside of the D block and closes it is down here. And none of the existing macro capabilities gives you this feature. This even comes handy in Lisp. That is a proposal saying that let's make D blocks, dynamic blocks, generalized to all of Emacs as opposed to just org mode. And that's relatively simple. And the Emacs source team could easily decide that this is worthwhile doing. And then Comiga, of course, I've gone over it through the presentation. So I see one question coming in. What changes have you seen the culture while developing all these things like Liber Halal system and now BLC and now BLCNT? Well, it's a work in progress, I would say. We learn from one another. And what I am doing may be considered just a stepwise increment. But the cultural input is that we really should start thinking about providing solutions as opposed to packages. The FOSS culture is really limited in its scope to packages, or even if when you think something very large like Debian, which is a collection of packages, it is still choice-oriented as opposed to solution-oriented. Yeah. Are there any additional topics or questions? Otherwise, I'll just add a few additional concepts. So the two other points made throughout the presentations are that this statement about clear invalidity of the Western IPR regime. So throughout the FOSS movement, we have been focusing on providing alternative licenses which coexist with the IPR system. And that is the practical thing to do. We are doing a jujitsu on IPR. We are saying that this is our license to it. But conceptually, there has been little discussion and also positioning on this basic question as to whether or not copyright and patents are valid or invalid. And what I am saying is that it is clear that they are invalid, particularly once you start looking at them with the lens of polyexistentials. And that the FOSS movement really needs to combine these two, this notion of free software and open source licenses, and combined with the belief system that we are completely and utterly against the validity of the Western intellectual property rights regime. And I use the Western and the American occasionally, and the reason behind that is that, in fact, they are Western. If you go to any other language, if you go to Farsi, if you go to Arabic, if you go to Chinese, if you go to Japanese, which are non-Western cultures, the concept of intellectual property, the words, the vocabulary of those combination of intellectual and property did not exist anywhere in those cultures. It's only in the past maybe 60, 70 years that they have been translated from the Western world and brought into it. So there is an inherent root into the intellectual property rights system, which goes to the Western culture. The second point that I have brought into this presentation.
Next, we have GNU Emacs G-Reader Mode is the best Emacs mode in existence by Yuval Langer. He will answer questions via IRC in the EmacsConf Gen channel.
Hi, I'm Yuval Langer. Some may know me as cow_2001 on IRC. I'd like to tell you about G-Reader Mode, a versatile text-to-speech package written by Michelangelo Rodriguez. Sometimes you want to read a bunch and cannot be bothered, right? You'd rather plop on your chair and let the words come to you. You can do it using G-Reader Mode. What is G-Reader Mode? G-Reader Mode is a text-to-speech minor mode with which you can read any buffer using the point. You move your point right before the text you want to read and run greader read command. You can then use the left and right arrow keys to jump to the previous sentence or the next sentence. Installing G-Reader. G-Reader is available on the GNU Emacs App Store, ELPA, and its copyright assigned to the Free Software Foundation. To install G-Reader, you can run meta-x list packages return. Look it up with Ctrl+S G-Reader, press I to mark it for installation, and then press X to execute the installation. Basic usage. We can now open a text file and start reading. Let's open The Willows by Algernon Blackwood. I've never read the story, but H.P. Lovecraft said it was the best horror story he had ever read, so it is in my reading list. Now load G-Reader using meta-x G-Reader mode. To start reading, press Ctrl+R space.
The Project Gutenberg ebook of The Willows.
This will run the G-Reader read command. To stop, press the space key. This will run the G-Reader stop command. Navigation. You can navigate like you normally do, but using the left or right arrow keys will move the point between sentences instead of characters. So
This ebook. You may copy it, give it away, or reuse it. If you want. Title.
let's move to the start of the story.
After leaving Vienna, and long before you come to Budapest, the Danube enters a region of singular loneliness and desolation, where its waters spread away on all sides, regardless of a main channel, and the country becomes a swamp for miles upon miles, covered by a vast sea of low willow bushes.
Reading rate. This reading rate is rather slow. Let's pick up the pace using the plus key. This will run the greader inc rate command. You must do that while greader is reading.
On the big maps, this deserted area is painted. In a fluffy blue growing paint in color as it leaves the banks, and across it may be seen in large scrambling letters the word soup, meaning marshes.
Now it is too fast. We can slow down using the minus key. This will run the greader dec rate command.
In high flood, this rate acreage of sand, shingle beds, and willow-grown islands is almost topped by the water, but in normal seasons the bushes bend and rustle in the free winds, showing their silver leaves to the sunshine in an ever-moving plane of bewildering beauty.
supposed to pick up some hay for the cattle, and he was told that there was supposed to be some place that he could pick up. There's a rock forest or something. He stopped back here, and when I sent him back over.
Next, we have an open mic session. You can join using the URL from the talk page or ask questions through Etherpad or IRC. Come right in. And then let me know who wants to have the moderator hat on and can take care of managing things. Haha, I'm just going to arbitrarily make Karthik in charge. Hi Karthik, you are now in charge. You can take presenter if you like. Okay, I think we're live.
Oh my God, Sacha, I just showed up because I don't want to be in charge. Yeah.
Well, this is very impromptu because space in the schedule and we're waiting for the dev track to finish so people can just hang out here anyhow.
I was hoping to join a full room where discussion is already going on and I could just be fly on the wall.
Do the dance on the
Sorry. Hang on a second. I need to go do. All right, this is Sasha back. And this is only mildly confusing because I'm also in the... Okay, all right, I have quieted the dev track. Hello. Yeah, we're just chilling out here. You get to either hear me be very awkward or you can come and save me from the awkwardness of conversation. I'll show you stuff, except my brain is kind of fried from juggling both tracks today. So, how are we doing? What are we doing? Does anyone want to do stuff? Show stuff? Last minute interesting things? I'm going to go see if anyone in the Gen channel is going to save me from my awkwardness. do I even find this? One of these windows. This one? No, not that one. Yeah, that one, I think. Okay. Here we are. All right. So yes, we have a little bit of time while we're waiting for the dev track to finish, and we could just declare this as a break, or if anyone's got any interesting last minute stuff, you can come and share it here, where Karthik is also hanging out. I think every time I read one of your long blog posts, Karthik, I'm like, life goals. Someday I want to write something with nice diagrams and, deep Emacs interestingness. I have not yet gotten the hang of even using AV to nearly the extent that you do. But yes,
man.
I have always looked at your diagrams very longingly and wondered how you make them.
With a lot of sweat and cursing, unfortunately.
It's all very nice.
Yeah, and I've seen your interactive SVGs, which is just wizardry. I have no idea how you do that. The kind where you can hover over different elements in the SVG and do interesting things.
Yeah, so it turns out if you just think of them as XML, which Emacs will let you because you can just Control-C, and it'll switch back to text mode, right? Then you can be like, oh yeah, I can work with this using the DOM Emacs Lisp library. And then you can add title elements to it to get the hovers, or you can add hyperlinks. So in fact, the EmacsConf schedule is very naturally generated from Emacs Lisp itself, because there was no way I was going to handle 2-track schedules by hand. And that's just SVG so that you can then have the hovers. The important thing is that when you're exporting it to HTML, it has to be an inline SVG to get the fancy behaviors. If you're linking it in as an image, then it doesn't work. It has to be inline. So for example, for my org mode, I have my exports for images checked first if it's an SVG. And unless I have an attribute on it that says, no, just link to it because it's large and not interactive, it actually inlines all of that markup into the exported HTML, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. It's a little less mysterious now.
On the plus side, once it is in there as inline HTML, well, inline, it's in the inline markup, you can actually play around with it using JavaScript or CSS.
That's really neat. I had a question about some other SVG wizardry I've seen you do. So you have these SVGs that grow, right? Like they accumulate elements, almost like a slideshow. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah. I started using that for one of the EmacsConf presentations. Well, the one EmacsConf presentation I've done in recent history, because it's nice to be able to add things gradually, right? Especially as you're giving a presentation. And that's also done with Emacs Lisp. What I do is I make the image, and then in Inkscape I can group together the elements that I want to appear at the same time. And then I can use Emacs to, I think I just add some CSS to them to make them like dimmer. And you just iterate through the different groups in that level, and you write out the intermediate SVG files, and then you can use Inkscape to convert them into PNGs if you want like images of each step that are in PNG format instead of SVG. But the basic idea is you group the elements together that you want in one step, and then you can manipulate it using the Emacs DOM.el library because it's just an XML document. So you can say, all right, hide everything, or have everything visible and then remove the last one, or something like that. Iterate it, just show them one at a time. and then write your resulting document object model to a new file. Each step.
Do you
Does that
have
make sense?
that makes sense. So do you just write the ELISP, like is this on a case-by-case basis? Like every time you need to do this, do you write fresh ELISP to step through the SVG this way? Or do you have some kind of package or library to do this
I have a
more?
blog post. Let me go see if this is the one. Boop, 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 boop. It's probably just buried in my config, and then every time, like if I do it again, I'm sure I will find another thing that I've completely forgotten about, and therefore have to recode or fix or whatever. But let me go see. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. So, oh yeah, this one. Nice, I remember that one. Okay, so you get this SVG, and then this animate SVG paths is just a function I have. It takes the file name, it makes an output there. It adds one path back at a time. And it just creates a lot of these, like, numbered frames. So as you can see here, I'm just saying, okay, take the whole thing, and then I think maybe I said it like, take the whole thing, make everything transparent, and then one at a time, make them opaque, and save that to the frame, to the image. So this theoretically is a somewhat reusable function that takes the SVG and just fills a directory with it.
What's the order in which it reveals things?
Top to bottom or bottom to top. It's whatever the SVG has. And so if you're grouping things together, you can rearrange things in Inkscape. If you've given them IDs, which I have another function for in Emacs Lisp that just highlights something and lets me put an ID for it, then you can rearrange them yourself by looking at the markup, I guess. Or I think I actually have some code also that will rearrange the paths based on a list of IDs that I give it, a sequence. So this one is animating one element at a time here. It's kind of like interesting effect. But for larger things, like for this one, I can split this up into groups because I don't want to necessarily animate them letter by letter. And that one, oh yes, this is the function that I have for identifying the paths. It highlights it and then it asks me for a name, and this is the one that reorders it. So I can say this is the sequence that I want it animated in, and
So
it will.
Go ahead. So you don't actually need Inkscape at all, right? Because you have an ELISP function that will let you assign the order interactively.
Yeah, so if you're doing just all the elements one after the other, Inkscape is helpful for combining the different shapes, breaking it apart, because when I get the PDF and I convert it, it's like one big element that has a very complex path. And if I want to animate it element by element, I have to break it apart and then recombine it so that this O looks like it's hollow instead of a tooth, like a circle, and like another circle. Right. So there's a little bit of Inkscape cleaning up before then, but I really dislike the mouse-heavy stuff of Inkscape for assigning IDs and things like that. I haven't quite gotten the hang of it. So this is what it looks like before you group the elements together and you combine paths, which is what you have to do Inkscape for, because I can't make sense of the numbers in Emacs someday. So just combine. But once it's there, like I don't like having to set the ID in this object properties on the right side, because there's a lot of clicking, and even if you like press escape or tab and tab, it's not reliable. So that's why I have this function. and it lets me identify the paths and animate them from within Emacs, because Emacs is a text editor.
Yeah, in name only. But anyway, so the groups, so if you've already assigned groups in Inkscape, then when you run it through this function in Emacs, you can assign an ordering to the groups, the order in which it will be revealed.
Yeah. What I did was I gave it all IDs. So I gave each group an ID, and then when I have the ID, I can say, you know what, maybe when I group it, I'm doing it in a bit of a haphazard way. I'm not, grouping the first thing first, and then the second thing, and the third thing. So it's a bit of a mess. And this one just resorts it by, I think, just looking everything up, storing it, and then putting it back in order. I remember, I probably have the code for this somewhere, and if it's not, it's in the source code. For the source code, there should be a source. Yes, so there's an org source for this post, and if it's not in there, then it should be in my config, the definition of this function. Reorder paths. Oh, here we are. Sort paths. Yeah. There you go. So there, it takes it, it looks for it, and it adds it to the first layer.
Okay, you just explained the magic, which makes it less magical, but also something I could try. Yeah, this is interesting.
Yeah, SVG is surprisingly powerful.
Yeah, I know.
So yeah.
I know it can do a lot more than what we typically use it for. So you also had this feature where I think you used CSS, where if you mouse over something in the SVG, something is highlighted in your web page. That may be a different.
Yeah. Like in the organizer's notebook. So I have a draft schedule here. Yeah, we've been doing all this stuff live, draft schedule, where if you have let's pick someone's top. Oops, oh yeah, highlight. This. I think this. Oh, maybe it's the other way around. I need to put this stuff here first. Yeah. Okay. So you'll notice here how if I have some JavaScript that takes a look at what's in the URL, and if so, then it can highlight a specific thing using just might be CSS, might be actually I think it's JavaScript setting the CSS style on it. But yeah, you can play around with CSS. See, this one has a slightly darker, slightly thicker background. Yeah, so SVGs are great for that. And if you inspect it, which I don't think I have shared here, but if you inspect it, I will share my inspect. I have too many windows open, so I don't want to share my whole thing. But one of these, I don't even know which. How do I find? Okay, it's the developer tools window. Do I even have developer? Oh, I can't see it. Okay. If you inspect the page on the developer thingy, then it will show the SVG element. Yeah, and unfortunately, I can't share it easily right now. Yeah, you just say inspect. Oh, this is actually, I think, how also the individual talks have current ones, right? So I just have this image over here, and then you just have that one, that specific talk styled differently.
How did you generate this SVG, the one showing the schedule?
Oh, okay. Emacs. Emacs publish, I think. Let me share it. EmacsConf pub. One of these windows. Okay. Let's see. Slow down. Look at all the windows. Okay, I'm just going to share the whole screen. Screen 2. No, screen 1. All right. And okay. I think this is the one. Screen 1. Is it sharing my screen? It is not sharing my screen. I'm going to try this again. Okay. All right. So the schedule. This is the actual function that creates the SVG rectangles for the talks. Oops, my screen share ended. Let me do that again. Oh, screen 1. All right. And as you can see, it's just a little bit of math for the X, the Y. We color it differently depending on whether I'm making the schedule for the public view. So we just, do we do development talk or general talk as colors, or if I want to color it for the backstage view, I can keep track of the talks by status. Anyway, so SVG track takes the track and all the talk information, and it makes all the little rectangles. And this is the thing that adds a little hover for the times and titles as well. So Emacs's API for dealing with this is actually pretty good. Oh, and I have a hook here that modifies it. You just run through different functions to tweak it. So I could say, okay, color it in case my time constraints are not being met, and then I can panic about the schedule some more. And the nice thing about this is you can, hang on a second, let me do this carefully. Draft schedule. All right, here you go. It's super nice to be able to refer to it within Emacs itself because Emacs has SVG support. So this is, for example, the organizer view inside an org mode file, and it has all those SVGs. You don't have the hover things because it's just an image in it, but yeah, SVGs, Emacs, awesome.
Oh, that's very cool. You're actually drawing the rectangles like from scratch.
It took a little bit of figuring out, especially since I realized I want it horizontal on the wiki pages so that it fits on people's screens, but I want it vertical on like in my organizer view so that I don't have to keep tilting my head sideways. And this is the code for, this is the code for that. See, I'm just directly adding G nodes for groups or A nodes for the hyperlinks and rect as well. I think the SVG library also has functions for adding rectangles and things like that, but sometimes I vaguely remember sometimes they don't return the node that I'm expecting, so it's okay to just use the DOM functions directly. And then the whole thing gets SVG printed afterwards. See? So I can just say SVG printed, and then it's good to go. Let me see. Actually, do I have SVG? Schedule. For track. SVG.
It's a shame that you can't visually interact with parts of an SVG in Emacs the way you can in
Oh. Some people have some interesting experiments with that. I haven't dug into it much, but people have figured out how to use the mouse events and then figure out what there's LEC Draw, right? So LEC Draw is a package that lets you draw SVGs and you can drag things and whatever. So that's very cool. And there's also an org related package that lets you visualize your schedule as boxes. Yeah, that's a thing also. So people have experimented with mouse interaction, and it's cool. But I haven't had the brain space to do that yet. But it would be nice.
Yeah, you're right. I remember using EL Easy Draw and being
Yeah.
surprised at what it can do. The only thing I think I discovered is that it ends up creating lots of new SVGs, kind of the way that you do when you show elements one by one. You're essentially creating one SVG for each state, one full SVG for each intermediate state of the presentation, let's say. That's kind of what EL Easy Draw does, and I thought that's not good for performance. And it is kind of on the slow side if you compare it to like Inkscape or anything else. But
You
yeah,
can
what it
actually-
can do is pretty amazing.
You can dynamically modify an SVG object and it will automatically get updated in Emacs, which is a technique that I use a lot in Subed. So for example, if I have waveform show all in this, it will, like, it's very easy to just move one element, for example, or make an element larger or smaller. And that seems,
Oh, sorry, Sasha.
it might be pretty efficient, I don't know, but I'm certainly not like writing it to disk each time and reloading it.
That's also how the fog of war technique that Eric and I demoed in 2020 EmacsConf for dungeon mode works, where we demonstrated, showing parts of the map, and then, different characters have different abilities that allow you to see different dungeon features, and then if your last character, of that class or race dies, then you suddenly can't see secret doors or whatever anymore, and so just make that disappear between one turn and the next is just working with just simply update the SVG and there goes the screen. No fuss, no muss. It's pretty awesome.
So this is an example of how I'm using it to kind of show where we are in the track, and then here's mouse interaction, right? I can change my timestamp right from there, which is fine.
So I'm curious how this works exactly. To affect any kind of change in the SVG, you have to use the DOM library, right?
Yes.
Okay, so but that means that it's going to be, anytime you make a change, it's going to read in the XML, convert it to an ELISP DOM, right? And then you modify that tree.
Yeah, you keep the DOM. In this case, for example, I'm actually constructing it using Emacs Lisp objects directly. If you were working with an external SVG, you would parse it first, yes, using XML parse file or something like that, and then you would have it in memory. When you insert the image, you insert the Lisp document object model that you have, and then any changes you make to that document object model automatically get updated in the image somehow.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I'll show you the code, subed, in a second. Pudge, subed.
Yeah, so I was under the impression that there's a round trip to XML involved to do anything.
No.
Like to go from displayed to in-memory modified back to displayed involves a round trip. Yeah.
So let me see where's my thing that changes it. So when it's the time. Restore IP position. There's probably some kind of hook that I'm listening to here. Playback position hook. Oh, it's this update current bar. All right, so what update current bar does is it moves the bar to the right place. And you see here how this SVG, I'm actually just reading it off the text property so that I know which one is the current one in the overlay. I remove the old one, just the element. I don't have to mess around with the image. I remove the old one for some reason. Just make sure, I guess. You can actually just update the attribute on it. Oh, I think this is just so that I don't have to worry about whether there is one or there isn't. And then I add a bar at the right position, and then makes that little animated sweeping thingy. So you see how I'm not recreating the SVG at this point. I'm just getting it from the overlay.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I wonder what it's doing, what it's actually doing under the hood when you run SVG remove or.
Yeah,
So
I don't know too.
I think it's RSVG is tied into the display engine, so to speak.
Yeah, that it is. But RSVG, the library, can only deal with actual SVGs, right? Like XML SVGs. But we're dealing with the ELISP DOM of an SVG.
So the display
So
engine
that's the
can
conversion.
re-enter the list. I
Oh,
do
yeah.
know that the display engine can re-enter the Lisp engine. So I think that may be the answer.
Yeah, no, you can just
Hmm.
SVG insert image the object itself. So here, for example, SVG create just creates it actually just creates a DOM model. So this is Lisp. It doesn't get printed to a string representation or anything. And then you can SVG insert image, or you can set the display and and use pass it like as an SVG image. SVG image gives you an image object if you want to do the regular sort of display thingy.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, that one says it turns it into a string representation. Or at least maybe that's just how it gets returned. Anyhow, some kind of magic happens, but I don't have to worry about it. It just stays in Lisp on my side.
Yeah, yeah, but I was thinking about it because I expect that if it's converting to XML all the time, every time you make a change, then that's going to be the bottleneck for any kind of heavy interactive SVG editing or modification in Emacs, the kind that EL Easy Draw does.
But maybe if we make it compelling enough, then the folks upstream can say, all right, like the way that JSON got a lot faster. Who
Mhm.
knows? Maybe we can get that to be
Yeah,
faster too.
yeah. I see a lot of potential for better UIs in Emacs with using SVGs.
Yeah. Nicolas Rougier has all those experiments, right?
Yeah, but all of those I think are bound by the limitations of how deeply SVGs are embedded in the display engine, because that's kind of what we're discussing. We want to avoid going to XML. I mean, going from XML to ELISP DOM to modified ELISP DOM back to XML. We want to avoid that round trip.
Yeah, for sure.
Or make that as fast as possible. Yeah.
Does anyone else have anything they want to share?
I've always got stuff I can share, but I pretty happily defer. I've already seen what I made. Karthik?
Oh, I'm a fly on a wall here. I'm not.
Okay.
I didn't come in with the intent to share anything. Yeah.
How about you, Sasha? Do you have other stuff you haven't shown up recently?
Aside from all the panicking about getting EmacsConf together this year,
I
just wanted to
understand.
let's see, what do I have in my recent fiddled with?
So I have a project called Oofta, which is a little bit fun. Let me pull it up here before I share. You can see my messy desktop. Okay, there it is. And I suppose I'll want a shell here somewhere too. Probably that one. And we'll just do root.
Oh, keeping in mind that graphics is going to end in about 5 minutes.
Ooh, perfect. That'll keep me from being my normal long-winded self.
Have you already made contact with Emmanuel, or do I need
I
to go
was
and quickly do a?
not.
Okay, I'm gonna quickly do a
Unfortunately,
check-in
didn't
then.
manage. Okay, sounds good. Did you hear back from him? I'm gonna assume that's a yes. So all right, I'll go ahead and share screen here and just take a look, a very brief look at this. Assuming I can present.
I had
Okay,
a question
actually,
for Sacha. I had a question for Sacha and you, Corwin. Hello?
yeah, you're good. Go for it.
Yeah. So in past years in the EmacsConf, there was a talk by someone, usually John Wigley or I think Philip last year, about new
Yes.
developments in Emacs.
Yes,
Right?
and that is kind of at the whim of the Emacs developers, whether that is included in the in the conference. It's kind of up to the how busy folks are and whether somebody can carve out the time to prepare it.
I see. Yeah, I noticed that there wasn't one for this year, and I know of at least one improvement or one change to Emacs. It's small, but I'm guessing it's very crucial for a certain class of Emacs users, and I can talk about that, just that one thing.
Please do.
But you can.
No, I
wait
don't have
for.
the presenter right, so I can't share anything, and we've got about 1 minute, so have at.
Okay. So the change is that in the development version of Emacs, child frames are now supported in the terminal. And I suspect that not many people know about it yet. But basically, this means something like Corfu is going to work fine when you're running Emacs in a terminal, as well as pause frames or anything that shows like a little pop-up window that previously did not work in terminal Emacs. That's it. That's the update.
Cool. Okay, there. I have a share screen button. We'll see if I think we're just about to cut away, but I'll go ahead and see if I can get this going. I'll just share my whole screen, and this will be a little ugly as it comes in. So this is a project that I think is a little bit fun. It's called UPTA. And basically what this does, you can see it on my source hut, GitHub. That's sr.ht/MPLS/Corwin/OFDA. And this is a very simple approach to using an org file as kind of a replacement for SQLite. It's very simple, but it does support like a dot style pathing notation, so you can get at deeply nested data, and just gives a little. There's a shell script wrapper that comes with it, and
all
that
right.
basically.
Theoretically, this is the Q&A for. All right. Theoretically, this is the Q&A for the graphics talk. Oops, I have to unmute over here. Sorry. I'm too.
All right, I had a little audio bleed through. My apologies. Can you still hear me? All right, I'm going to guess, because I still see us live on the screen, that we're still live. All right, so I'll just press on. So what we're looking at here is a project called UPTA. Here's the Emacs Lisp source for it. You can see it's not real impressive, even with all of its boilerplate. It's under 200 lines of code. And this is kind of a proof of concept, giving us the ability to use a .org file as a flat file database. the intention here is to get a kind of transition from SQLite, which is using a flat text file as a database, to being able to have more of a literate database where we can intermix documentation about the data with the data itself. And then by giving a path on the command line, I'll go back to the README, just take a look at that. And you can see there's a couple of kind of examples here where we're, here we would be querying a path. We can also provide a value, and that'll set data into the file. It also has an optional first parameter to specify the specific org file. By default, it looks for a file called data.org. And of course, that can be used inside Emacs as well, although the value of that may be a little bit limited compared to more sophisticated technologies like org element. This is not an implementation that mirrors all of org element or any of the more complex functionality of org. It's really as simple as possible, proof of concept to just to be able to kind of work with the data inside an org file and get it back out on the command line. So see if we can make it work here.
Corwin, could you increase the font size?
I surely will.
Of the terminal.
All right, how's that?
That's much better. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So let's see if we do have. Well, we can probably fake it. Let's do this. All right, and then in theory, this just works. So we'll touch. Well, let's. So we'll just create a data file called data.org. Make sure that worked. Looks reasonable. Let's try adding some data to it. Not so happy. Okay, let's try it the hard way. I'll come back over here to my usage and we'll just try running it manually.
Is finding Emacs really the issue?
I think it's not like in my path. It's not finding upto.el and pwd. It wants it to be on the load path.
I see.
So this should retrieve the value if it works. Okay. Add to list, take a symbol.
Yeah, add to list takes a symbol. You're going to have issues with bash quoting, so you should escape the quote inside
Thank
the.
you. Got you. Irritating. I'm not Lambda. Whoa. That may work. I got my parents right. Never demo live. Ooh, how exciting. Okay. Without batch, though, we may not get our output. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's as far as I'm going to take it. I should have prepped a demo environment. I wasn't really prepared to demo.
No worries. So I have a couple of questions about this feature. The first question is, do you use it?
I do use it. Yeah. I should have gotten onto the environment where I'm using it.
So
it's a little messy.
what kinds of
it gets
things
into
do you
another
use
project
it
that's
for?
way too complicated to get into.
Yeah, but what kinds of things do you use it for?
It's sort of hard to answer that without getting into my other project, but essentially I've got a web development tool chain that is kind of a web-based REPL that is kind of a literate compute environment, if you will, allowing me to use a bunch of virtual machines as one big computer. That project is called Ghost Wheel. And so in order to show off the homepage, so on this page, you can see the list of machines, and then you'll also see there's these state indicators. So, and right now, as a matter of fact, what I've been hacking on is trying to get support for org tables. Right now, I support only changing all of the data within some heading, subheading, or whatever. What I'd like to be able to do is specify using org table FM and syntax the particular row column. So find a particular named table, find a particular row, column 1, row 2, column 1, and then set the value from the command line. Currently, I just use it for very simple stuff. I don't really want to show that off. I've got another page that lists all of the DNS names that are associated that are hosted on Ghost Wheel. And so I use that to add items to the list. Does it make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if
Yeah,
we can...
it sounds useful.
Let's see if we can find. Ooh.
So one thing that I would like, I guess it's easy enough to write, but is a tool exactly like this where I can query my org files from the command line.
Yeah,
but
that's
it's going
exactly
to be
what
more
it says.
like a but it's going to be more like a database query where I say select all headings where that contain this string or that have this tag, right? The kinds of things that you can do with RQL. from outside, from inside Emacs, right? To be able to do those from the command line with, I'm going to invoke SQL here, like SQL select statements, but it doesn't have to be that syntax, right? Just that capability.
Yeah,
I can see that
pretty
being useful as a command line tool, and I don't even care about write, like the ability to write or manipulate the file. Just query from the command line. That sounds pretty useful.
Yeah, exactly. To be able to dig a piece of data out of an org file as well, for my purpose, it's very useful to be able to replace it, because then I can deal with submit the form, and that might be like a sign-up form. And then I just add the user, add an entry into the org file for that user, right? What it doesn't do is any relational data, right? So everything, it's essentially a document data store, if you will, like a Mongo kind of.
True. So over on IRC, ScrewLisp asks, what does it mean to query an org file? Is the data in a table? Is it in an eLisp nested list view of a table that has a name in org? And my answer to that is that if you ever used RQL, written by Alpha Papa, then that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. So you query based on one of a set of attributes, right? And these attributes are any of the anything that's recognized by org. For example, the to-do status, the dates, the outline path, the headings, a full text search, and there are several more. The presence or absence of certain properties, right? Using any combination of those, if you want to dig down and find some data in an org file, that's the kind of query I'm talking about. It is somewhat equivalent to being able to write SQL queries where you match on things just for your org files.
Okay. I think we might have figured out our problem. It was DOS encoding. See if that works. No. Well, let's just do the easy thing.
I switched the development track over to just watching the gen track since I couldn't find Emmanuel. Also, Eludom wants to mention the Emacs Carnival theme for December is the people of Emacs, of which you are all very awesome. Thank you so much for your patience. Today has been very interesting. But yes, at some point we can show that too. And we can basically wrap up anytime we like or hang out anytime we like. Hang out for as much time as we like also.
Okay. So this is, okay, at least I got as far as a working demo here. So now you can kind of see what's going on. And I'll just wrap that into a little prettier output. And you can see that it modified the value. So it's pretty darn simple. Again, all it's doing is completely replacing all of this content with whatever new value is given as its final argument after naming the data path. So the one refinement we can do, just to get a little more complex example going, we'll deepen our structure a little bit. And try that. So here now we'll say test 2. And we can take a look at the data file and see that it has adjusted that. Because test 2 was completely unique, that worked fine. If that were not the case, we would have had to specify the path using dot notation like this. And that's pretty much it. Took me much longer to figure out why it wasn't just working than it did to demo it, I'm afraid. And again, what I really like about this program, besides the fact that I find it quite useful to just be able to stuff values into an org file from the command line using a shell script, is what I really like about this is that it's a whopping 190 lines of code, including all the boilerplate. And I will share the project into the chat.
So, Corwin, you're not using org element for this, are you?
No. Yeah, great question. Let's just get a little into the code here. Or maybe it would be more fun to actually open it here. So the only real requires here, I do use clib. Mostly I'm directly using the macros from org. Particularly, I'm extremely fond of this function. I'd love to see this just promoted to promoted somewhere deeper into Emacs proper, so that I don't have to load all of the org macros to get to this particularly useful one, which just tells me whether ignoring white space, a string has any characters, has greater than 0 length.
Isn't that just string blank B?
So this is a little different. This deals with I may struggle to remember the details, but and it's possible that the non-org specific version has even been improved, or I didn't use it correctly. But I believe my experience was it didn't handle new lines, for example, quite the same way. So getting into what this actually does, most of the program is finding the relevant part of the file. You'll see that we start out by doing a depth-based search, capture the value that we're looking for. And then finally, we widen the buffer and keep handling the case where we might be being called from within Emacs in a narrowed buffer. This another probably should be documented at the top. So that is obviously going to load org. Just double check that. Yeah, it is going to load org. Yep, and we can see that because it didn't find the function until I loaded org, and then it did when I did Control H F to get definition of a function. So widen the buffer, and then I just start looking for the search. You can see I'm doing simple, regular expression-based searches here, looking for lines ultimately that that start with a star. That was a little simpler format that didn't quite work out. So I'm searching for here. This is a little tricky, but I'm searching for a number of stars equal to the depth that I want. The depth that I want being calculated based on the number of dots that were in the query string. From there, kind of skipping some stuff, right? Once we find our starting position, then we're going to have to find the end of that, the section that we're going to read or replace. Text a tiny bit smaller.
So I checked org string. I checked org string NWP, and it's the same as string blank p.
Exactly the same code or the same result?
No, it's the same result. Well, it's the same check, but string blank p will return a match object, like a string match object, whereas the org version will return the string itself if it finds a match, as in if it's blank.
I don't remember that was what I ran into.
As a Boolean check, they are the same. If you use it as, is it blank or not?
So, yeah, I've talked for way longer. I literally thought this would be a 5-minute thing. I'm not sure if there are any questions on it, but just to simply answer your question, no, it doesn't use org element. This is pure regex-based work.
So the advantage of not using...
The most complicated part was getting clean output.
Right. So the advantage of not using org element is that you don't have to load org or org element, right? And it's going to be faster.
Org element, that's true.
And it's going to be faster both because you don't have to load org element and because you don't have to run org element, like the org parser. But on the other hand, you end up loading. On the other hand, you end up loading all of org anyway. So at that point, it might just be better to use org element because it's more robust. For example, if you have a bunch of leading stars inside a source block or something, you don't want to misclassify that. So,
matter of fact, I believe I had to do some fussing with it to avoid to deal with not just that, but drawers and things like that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So
at the end of the day, that was just an extra 10 or 20 characters in the regular expression, so I just shrugged and wrote them. You can see there are a number of I happen to like writing regular expressions and find them relatively readable, so so it didn't bother me doing that. I've also done a bunch of work with org element with the Dungeon project, which of course uses that extensively to pull data out of tables and so on. And indeed, I think that may ultimately be my solution. I've been kind of distracted on a side quest to improve the org table FM parser. There's a post on my blog about the work that I've done there, and recently started talking to Igor, the new org maintainer who took over in the last year or so from Bastian, just about what it would take to kind of pick that up, or at least get it to a point where somebody else could work on it. It's pretty dense right now. Show that out as well. So this thing is a bit of a monster, but at the end of the day, our goal is to extend the syntax, is to be able to use this org table FM syntax in other contexts. So if you haven't looked at org table FM, these I bar or these I markers are telling us to look for the table separator. So positioning based on the location of a table separator. I find that a little bit brittle, just because it's really easy to go in and decide, oh, it'll look better with an additional line separator in there, and then and then all of these formulas break everywhere. So it'd be a little more fun to have at least variables in there, and that's kind of part of the scope. If we look, and here you get kind of a hint of the new syntax I'd like to support. Things like $, $_, keyword. It's probably a half-hour talk just to get into what every single one of these would do, but this post does give some context to that. And more importantly, there's a complete test program that worked the last time I was playing with it. And this gives you complete examples of all the syntax that the work in progress does currently support. You'll see some of these items are commented out. Those aren't supported yet, and before I would implement them, now, especially now that we're talking in terms of trying to take org itself this direction, of kind of beefing up the table FM format parsing so that it could be used in other contexts besides specifically within formula. I wouldn't want to add features to it without discussing those. So this is just a simple, basically a literate test file, if you want to call it that. The perhaps key improvement here is naming all of the different capture groups, which just if you're working with really huge regular expressions, which this is, let me just make sure the whole regex is right in here. You can see it, yeah. So here's the actual rewrite. Scale it a little bit so you can see it's kind of a monster. And that's all using RX. So hopefully that looks pretty familiar. Dollars for specifying a column, @ to specify a row. So I have the keys. Anybody else want to show and tell?
We're going to cut over to the automated introduction for the Saturday closing remarks in like 4 minutes.
That sounds brilliant.
Oh, but a quick mention of the Emacs Carnival. So the Emacs Carnival is a shared blogging theme where lots of people write about a specific theme, and then if you write about it, you can send your link to whoever's hosting the carnival, and it's a great way to discover other people's cool stuff. So if I take presenter, hang on a second, take presenter. Oh, actually, haha, I know, I'm going to make Eludom present it. Haha, you are now in charge. Okay, take it away. I made you presenter.
So I've been using Emacs for like 46 years now, back to Tico Emacs. And as I just said in the chat, I've found that the people who use Emacs tend to be interesting people in many different ways. And so this month, I'm just saying, let's give a shout out to some of the interesting people, we've met along the way. And, including some of the people that are putting on this conference are some of the most interesting and helpful people I've ever met. So thank you.
You're very kind. Thank you. Pardon me. I'll say more than that. maybe I will. I completely agree with you, and I couldn't agree more. I think that's how Sasha and Amin and Leo really dragged me into this, into being a volunteer. And I'm sure we'll talk about this in the closing remarks, but I can't recommend volunteering for this project enough. It's just so fun to talk backstage with the presenters, and I don't know. It's an extremely engaging community. Really thoughtful.
I like the way y'all are so patient and awesome, and I can be just quietly having my little freak out here, and everyone's fine, and we'll even help debug things live as needed. So this is all good. Anyway, so if people want to participate, you basically write a blog post. If you don't have a blog yet, there are any number of packages in Emacs as well as web-based services, but really, like, you can get something going with org exporting to HTML and maybe even figure out RSS, or you can use a static site generator like Hugo, or you can find if you can set up WordPress, that's another way to do it. Or you can email me your thing and I'll post it on my blog and let me know who you want, how you want to be credited for it. Anyway, so you can share your story, or share your story about somebody else's story, and celebrate Emacs community. And we can send it to George also, who will then make links in that blog post.
And on the subject of community, I also heartily recommend.
Finally, we have Saturday closing remarks.
Beautiful.
Well, that's going Saturday close, and let's arrange our screen nicely. All right, we made it to the end of the first day. Woo! Thank you for joining us for the first day of EmacsConf 2025. Feel free to spread the word because there is still another day of fun talks tomorrow. So hashtag EmacsConf and hashtag Emacs. If you do hashtag Emacs on Mastodon or Blue Sky or other places, I will probably find it. Or if I don't, you can just let me know also. The pre-recorded talks should be up on the talk pages already. The live talks, we'll probably actually get them up within the next week or two. I think they've already started processing, so I just had to sit down and then work with our wonderful army of volunteer captioners to get them all nicely captioned. But anyway, so the pre-recorded talks are also up on YouTube, and I will eventually also upload them to TubeNix, which is a PeerTube instance. We will work on extracting live talks. If you'd like updates, please subscribe to the EmacsConf Discuss mailing list. If you've got ideas for making things better, we have so many ideas. I always end up with a very long to-do list after these things. Please add them to the pad. I'd love to hear from you on how we can make it even smoother next year. There are about 100 people watching on Gen and 100 people watching on Devs, which is really awesome. It's amazing to think that we can have an Emacs party for a lot of people. And we can only do this because of all the wonderful speakers, volunteers, participants, and very patient people in our lives who make it possible through all the time and support. So this year, we had a lot. Corwin did most of the hosting. I mean, also dropped by earlier, so that's great. I hope Leo is okay. We managed. And I'm Sasha, by the way. I was running around backstage and occasionally dropping in to go all on the stream. there are lots of other volunteers who are not on air. So, for example, during the proposal review process, we got a lot of wonderful comments from JC Hillary, Chico, and James Anders Howell. Captions from Amitav and Rodion, and other people have actually started also helping with the captions as well. So Jaybird just sent in some stuff today too. We are slowly working on getting a mirror in the EU set up, so it'll be a little faster for people. So thanks to Yang3 for lending us a server. Bavin and Michael and Ian and Jamie and Eeyore and Floy Coder have also helped out as well. Thanks to the Free Software Foundation for the mailing list, the media server, and of course GNU Emacs itself, for which an astonishing amount of the scripting is done in Emacs. It's great. Thanks to RIP for the server that we're using for OBS, so that we can just VNC into it and I can manage 2 tracks without making my computer melt. It's great. And of course, to all the users and contributors and project teams that work on all the free software that this stuff is built on. Emacs, Org Mode, ERC, Tramp, Magit, or Magit, Big Blue Button, Etherpad, IkiWiki, Icecast, OBS, The Lounge, Libera Chat, FFmpeg, OpenAI Whisper, WhisperX, the Aeneas Forced Alignment Tool, SciTransfer, Subed, Subseg, Mozilla Firefox, MPV, and TamperMonkey, and other things I probably forgot to mention. Thanks to Shoshin for the music, and thanks to people also who've donated through the Working Together program, like Scott and Jonathan and other anonymous donors. So that's our quick thanks. There's more tomorrow, but Corwin, do you have any parting words?
You know, my parting words, Sasha, are a thanks to you, and not just a thanks for the hundreds of hours that you put into preparing this conference, over the years and probably just this year, but also for all that you do for the Emacs community. You are a real unsung hero, even though I do hear your praises sung. They really can't be sung enough. In fact, I just this last week recommended to 2 different people your blog as a place to get a first introduction to Emacs. Your Emacs news is an incredible contribution, and just I want you to hear us thanking you. Thank you, Sasha.
Emacs is a lot of fun, and it's just, and Emacs people are a lot of fun, so it's all very wonderful. Yeah, we can wrap up here. People can keep hanging out if they want. I have a kiddo who is probably going to be back home soon, and will pounce on me for more hugs. So I will see you all tomorrow. For more probably the same kind of scrambling.
Shut it down, save our energy for tomorrow. We do like to run into hours long closing tomorrow, so we'll work on resisting that. I suggest we go get some rest and come back at it fresh tomorrow. Anybody else?
Yes.
Any concerns with that, or shall we go for it?
Sounds good to me. If you've got ideas, pop them into the Etherpad. And thank you so much for sharing this time with us.
See you tomorrow.